you know, how bracketing ends up unfolding for the day, but every time he's in top 8 when he appears in a bracket, even winning on DNA's, I think it was 2 weeks ago now. Like it's, he's a immaculate player that just continues to prove and to improve with this Isabelle, solo Isabelle. And I mean, it's only a matter of time before he pops off at an even larger major, because he's got 70% on Jakal now, right before that Nair ended up coming through.
It's dedication to a character that's often like disregarded when you talk about competitive play, especially in comparison to Jakal being one of the higher level Wolf solo main players, especially on this side of the country. Like, but matchup wise, this is definitely a more daunting task for Zercon's half. There's a lot in the way of Wolf that allows him to easily break through Isabelle's zone, and then I don't think we have to introduce anything in regards to Wolf's ability to kill off of all the damage he's able to provide.
Now, which will put it all on the Iota for Mr.Zercon, just to kind of hold center, minimize the punishes, even if there's a lot of damage. Try and reduce kills and close stocks of your own, whether it be by calling out jumps like we saw there, or just clean ledge play like I guess we also saw there, and a great chase down on top of all of that. Trying to... Like, what always gets me with Zercon is that they take just the good things that Isabelle has and are able to string it together with some more situational options to have such a creative combo tree. And that advantage certainly works wonders for this player. Jakal looking for the edge guard, though. Great delay.
Yeah, when it comes to talking about what makes Isabelle strong, I feel like Zercon's a great player to point to, because you see him trying to minimize the lesser aspects of Isabelle and highlight the stronger ones. And of course, those are going to be that lateral pressure, moving from stage to off stage, and the off stage play, of course, really strong behind all those projectiles, and the fishing rod, of course. And then on top of that, there's no real damage that's going to be too difficult for Isabelle to try and build up between whoever's chasing her down. And Zercon does a fine job of building up that zone when you try to consider how long of a distance Fair and Bear cover, and then punishing in any jump-ins that Wolf puts out, and you know Wolf is going to be doing a lot of jumping in because of the value of Fair and there.
Oh yeah, and with all that airspeed to go with it, this is what creates such massive extensions for Jakal. Despite the deficit that he was at the second stock, a mixture of crazy damage output and Jakal's own familiarity with this stage has just made for so much of just a huge strain to get him not only back into this game, but was at a lead for a short while. And man, these fall hops, these fast falls, Jakal playing so on point. It's not even like he's jet lagged at all. This kid was in California just earlier today.
Hey, listen, can't stop, won't stop. Player like Jakal got to consistently prove why he's, on the up and up in the top echelons of Ultimate. And, of course, one of the aspects of doing so is proving to be a dominating force in his home region, which he does on a regular basis, although Zercon's certainly given him a run for his money in the cat and mouse game that is the Isabelle matchup.
Yeah, and hey, sometimes sometimes the mouse gets to cheese first, as I say that we got an even game on Jakal, this time waiting in shield a little bit longer, kind of baiting Zercon to try and cross him up and retake center.
Hey, listen, I've watched Tom and Jerry a couple of times. I know Tom manages to grow Jerry every once in a while. Every once in a blue moon. He's gonna have his day.
Are you a Tom stan? I'm a Tom stan.
I don't know.
We root for
Jerry
the cat
don't
sometimes.
lose.
Jerry
don't know how to hold L's.
He really
That's king mentality right there.
Oh, love to. I mean, making a regular Jerry out of this is Jakal, starting off with an early deficit by some of the clever traps from Zercon, but managing to worm his way through them and still come out on top. But some last gas, some last little tricks coming out from Zercon, adding on to that patience and these ridiculous slingshots. He always keeps you honest with just the quickest of grabs.
Like, the slingshot does a really good job of trying to invalidate the pressure that Blaster typically allows for defensive Wolf play. Although, I think the key word is trying, because Zercon seems to have a really concrete flow of how to play around Wolf, and seems to be in just the right spot every single time Jakal lands. And it's kind of what I was highlighting it before, where you know that Wolf's going to be jumping around a lot. Jumping in general is a commitment, and even with great movement speed in the air, like, you are still committing to being in the air. You got to come down eventually. Zercon doing a great job of being able to punish in those situations, but as the percentages climb more and more, it's looking to lean more to Jakal's favor, but it's still a very dangerous test, given that Jakal's thrown at 165.
Oh, yeah, and that was such a huge miss on Jakal's part, missing the regrab from Zercon thanks to him quickly buffering that roll. Now, I mean, we're at this high percentage even. Zercon looking to find this stock. Any strong hit could do it, of that slingshot, of that nair. Yes, sir, out of shield, that big, or that surprisingly strong neutral air. Such an effective partner for neutral, and at 170, not much won't take the stock.
In general, really good defensive play from Zercon. I do think the stage really did favor heavily towards Isabelle because you've got all of that lateral space to have pressure out, both from playing out of shield and from having the Lloyd mindset. Definitely in Jakal's best interest to try and deny center stage as we move forward on Pokemon Stadium 2. And just in general, being smarter with how to move in. It's certainly annoying. I'm not going to undersell that. But Wolf, very much one of the characters in this game that could make zoning a nightmare for Isabelle.
I mean, we're seeing it right at the start of this game, too, as Zercon had a chance for a reversal, but not quite going for it yet. A quick 83 on Zercon really cements that Jakal has, at the very least, understood that, yeah, I need to start pushing Mr.Zercon into this corner and not let him set up so reliably as the dash attack comes in on the landing that time. Laser to come through. Ooh, the extension.
That was smart. Trying to extend your hitbox off the balloons is a brilliant way of extending edge guards, to make him a little bit more safer, a little bit more reliable against both Isabelle and Villager whenever that applies to him. But yeah, one thing I really do want to start seeing Jakal take advantage of is the jump-ins from Zercon as well. Perfectly timed as that back air connects. And you want to be able to punish Zercon whenever he moves out of his fortress. He does a fine job of building it up with Lloyd Mine and the short hop fairs and bears, but it's a hard commitment outside of any movement outside of that place.
Wow, and still almost recovered. It makes you wonder, like, how ready was Zercon to cover the Wolf Flash? That definitely could have made it. Either way, that's in the past, and Jakal is moving into the future, looking for a falling fair on the neutral getup, yet not quite finding it. Yet the advantage keeps coming, trying to keep the juggle going, missing the dash attack, which only allows Zercon to kind of, I guess, put themselves in the same position they were in earlier in this game, down by a lot of percent. But as long as Isabelle is able to set up that fortress, set up these mines, damage can come rather quickly.
One thing that I've noticed is a big difference from Game 1 to Game 2 is Jakal did a lot more aggressive pressing with Nair and also a lot more dash attack. I think it's more important that you're seeing dash attack and the frequency of the Nairs here, because it's a lot harder for Zercon to build up his defensive wall if you got Wolf suffocating you interaction after interaction.
I mean, I completely agree here. We're forced to see Zercon just do so many of these double jumps away, and it's, instead of trying to find the space and land with one of these more safer options like Nair, or find the space to go for more of these fairs and bears, we're forced to see him go for, like, landing down airs, and Jakal just making all of these lateral zoning options that both Isabelle and Villager are so known for, just not safe. Look at the absolute call out here. You get a nice trade, trying to shark, trying to force Jakal into shield to freely take back the corner, freely take ledge. Jakal having none of it in that game too. Oh my
because
God.
It looks like we're going to be moving down to Summit City for Game 3. I think a really good choice from Zercon's half. And in general, I think he needs to just try to stay a lot more adaptive on where to move, because running to the ledge was not doing him any favors in Game 2. Jakal adapted really well on being able to answer that defensive play. So seeing how he has to deal with a lot of platforms, I still think Jakal's going to have a fine job of being able to maneuver around here, because again, Wolf's movement just makes this matchup a breeze on paper. Like, if you have to deal with multi-layered slingshots, it's not going to be a fun time. Even if it's supposed to be an easy time.
It's definitely always going to be a test of your patience, and I mean, patience is quite the virtue, and Mr.Zercon certainly having plenty of it going into this Game 3. Sometimes even a little bit too much, but hey, that's never a bad thing.
Like, if you're playing as Isabelle and you're fighting against a character that's really good rushdown tools, and also a somewhat respectable zoning tool by way of Blaster. Like, saying that the matchup is a struggle isn't going to earn you any brownie points. But playing it as passively as you can while being smart with your buttons is how you understand what you can make livable out of the matchup. And I think Zercon's doing a great job of that, but Jakal's doing a finer job being able to move along with his own game plan, buttons after buttons after buttons. It's big damage and big KOs.
Big is an understatement, because getting a stock lead against Mr.Zercon seems to be exactly where Jakal wants to be. Not even seems to be, is proven to be, given how Game 2 went out. Now suddenly Blaster can start to be that much more of a thorn in Zercon's side. And Pocket, it's solid for one of them, but it's not like Jakal is restricted from shooting anymore. It just looks to be like this is a rough spot for Mr.Zercon when forced to try and approach and find these kills. Jakal can make it all the harder with how safe he can play the balloons, not popping both of them though.
Honestly, if Isabelle's balloons pop, it's not the end of the world, because air drift is pretty respectable. It is a problem if you see Wolf Flesh sending Isabelle down to the depths instantly. Oh, something that Zercon's going to have to watch out for with those lower recoveries.
Jakal looks to try and make this lead climb even further into the end of the game. Oh, and there's the final Void Rocket hit that they were looking for. It is, I mean, down a whole stock, but we can never stress enough that Wolf is an incredibly gimpable character, and while these lateral tools, these slingshots, and the horizontal pressure are incredible in mid-stage, they're also incredible at sniping out jumps, which can be a death sentence for the Silver Space Wolf.
Yeah, the opportunity for finding some sort of frisky offstage play is definitely leaning more to favor of Zercon, but good on Jakal for trying to minimize those kind of situations. He's only really offstage if he's put there, and doesn't spend a lot of time out there, in spite of Wolf's ability to be able to kill off of offstage extensions. I think playing with your hand close to your chest is the way you've got to play out this matchup. Otherwise, you start losing a lead that you have, and we see the tight stocks, but damage lead still puts Jakal in a somewhat comfortable position.
Yeah, being a little bit overly aggressive with some of these nairs, allowing Zercon to use some pretty clean dashes. Isabelle not known for their dash dance movement, but Zercon finds ways to microspace and make the most out of every spot, avoiding and punishing with some clean pivot grabs. 45 is climbing now.
As a character loyalist, it's not a matter of like comparing what you've got. You gotta just work with what you've got. And Zercon, time and time again, has proven that he can make good with Isabelle's tools. So, comparatively speaking, it's more a matter of how well he can weather the storm of this matchup. And I think Zercon's been making really good use of this stage coming into Town and City with all of this room. But like, Jakal's kept the adaptations he made from Game 2, and I think is just responding really well. That's the key here, is you see Zercon putting out a whole lot of projectiles, you just gotta respond to them. And what better a response than taking the game, taking the set. It's a 2-1 victory for Jakal over Mr.Zercon.
Hey, he made that statement, right? Just, yeah, you can overwhelm me, you can press all your Isabelle buttons and force these potential mistakes to come out and punish them accordingly. But at the end of the day, Wolf will always have the tools to overwhelm Isabelle, and it was just a matter of Jakal picking apart that knot that made Mr.Zercon get top 8 in the first place. And Jakal did it super well in that Game 3, closing out a single stock victory, but it felt like the control and the pacing was always in Jakal's favor.